Rainbow Six Siege has evolved drastically over the past 8 years. However, a common phrase you'll hear a lot of people in the community say is, "I miss old Siege." And people say this despite all the great changes the game has made to go in a more competitive direction. So in today's video, I'll be giving you 14 reasons why old Siege really wasn't as good as you think it was. Now strap in, because some of the things I'll list in this video will surprise you. Okay, now for the first and arguably biggest difference between release and current Siege, we have the lighting. Old Siege lighting looked amazing, but for gameplay purposes, it was awful. As a defender, if you had to look outside through a window, you would be blinded by the glare on the screen. Not to mention, the lighting created a lot of dark corners, meaning that defenders had a lot of areas to rat in that were very hard to see, even on a drone. And dark maps made the problem of window glare reversed, because now the defenders would have a huge advantage when going to spawn peek. Night maps would be a good thing to bring back now since we have a new lighting system, but back then they were awful for that reason. I'm so happy Ubisoft reworked the lighting system, because if they didn't, the game would be a lot worse to play at a competitive level. Moving past the awful lighting, we have the awful release version of the ranked playlist. Back when ranked first released, every map and every game mode was included in ranked, meaning hostage on plane was something you would actually have to play in the playlist that was meant for competitive. This obviously was awful for competitive integrity. Some people seem to think bringing back hostage and secure area to the ranked pool would be fun, but I think we can all agree that playing plane and house in ranked was not fun at all. And I'm not gonna lie, most of the people who say that hostage and secure area would be fun in ranked are not looking at ranked as a competitive mode, and they're more wanting the game to be more casual. So to me, I think the ranked playlist is perfect the way it is right now. All they need to do is add some reworks to the way elo actually functions, so the playlist actually promotes competitiveness, and we'd be on the right track. Now, another original feature we would all hate today is attachments costing renown. I remember back when I started playing the game, this was a super annoying feature, because not only did you have to save up for operators, but you now had to choose between buying an operator or getting actual attachments on your guns. This made the game have a huge grind for people who refuse to buy the operators with money, which I think we can all agree is a bad thing. So I'm happy this feature was canned, because if it wasn't, every time a new operator released, all that prestige renown you saved up would have to go towards buying attachments for their guns. After the egregious attachment prices, we now have something that almost everyone will unanimously agree is a bad thing. And that, my friends, is old shields. You see, back when the game first released, shield operators had insanely tight hip fire. Not to mention, they could ADS extremely fast. So fast, in fact, that it was hard for most players to react to it. So imagine having a Monty walking into the bomb site, and as soon as you stop focusing on him, he unshields and kills you instantly. This was extremely annoying to deal with, and a lot of the hatred that people have from shields comes from all the way back when this was an issue. I am so happy we don't have this in the game anymore, because if we did, shield operators would be by far the most banned operators in the game. And you guys know I love playing shields. Speaking of old shield operators, another overpowered operator back in the day was Thatcher. This was because EMPs used to work completely differently to the way they do today. Back when Siege released, his EMPs would destroy all electronic devices instead of disabling them. This allowed Thatcher to destroy virtually every gadget on the defense with just a few well-placed EMPs. Obviously, this was a huge issue for balancing, and it was for a very long time in the competitive scene. So Ubisoft decided to turn him into what he is today, which is still incredibly strong, but it isn't anything compared to what he used to be. This rework was definitely needed at the competitive level, because Thatcher was by far one of the most picked operators in the game for obvious reasons. Now, the overpowered gadgets didn't just stop with Thatcher's EMPs though. Barbed wire actually was incredibly strong back in the day. I know this may surprise a lot of you, but it's true. Old barbed wire used to take 3 hits to destroy, and they made you much slower than they do today. This made pushing barbed wire pretty much a no-go, because if you tried to melee the barbed wire, you risked getting shot, and if you walked through it, you could be caught with your pants down. This led to a lot of people opting to use explosives to clear barbed wire back in the day, making barbed wire a solid choice for wasting attacker utility. Luckily, that isn't the case today though, because this barbed wire was a little overtuned, to say the least. Now, a quality of life change that I'm sure we're all happy about is the reinforcement pool changes. As you know, reinforcing today involves your entire team having 10 reinforcements, meaning one person theoretically could place all 10 of them. However, back on the game's release, this wasn't the case. Each operator had 2 reinforcements, meaning if one of your solo queue teammates decided to ignore reinforcing altogether to go spawn peek, their reinforcements would go to waste, and there would be no way to get them back. As you can probably tell, this made ranked extremely frustrating if you weren't in a 5-stack, because not only did you have to rely on whatever randoms you got to place their reinforcements, but you also had to worry about them placing them in correct spots. I'm so happy things didn't stay this way because solo queuing is already frustrating enough nowadays. But back then, it was even more frustrating because you risk losing 2 or 4 reinforcements in a round if your teammates really sucked. Outside of just these features, there were also some big issues with the movement mechanics of the game back then. A great example of this is drop shotting. As you can see by the gameplay, drop shotting was extremely overpowered. It allowed you to move your head from standing height to prone height nearly instantly. This made every gunfight extremely annoying. There was always one person in the lobby constantly drop shotting, and sure, it was counterable, but it just didn't feel fun or fair to go against. Also, it didn't make sense in Siege since they were wanting to take the game in a more tactical direction. Sure, drop shotting makes sense in a game like Call of Duty, but in Siege, it realistically doesn't fit the game. So luckily, Ubisoft decided to remove it, and it's no longer possible today. Another feature that I was happy to see go was bolo leaning. This was awful for the game because it allowed you to peek a corner so fast that a lot of the time the person you were peeking couldn't even see you. And when your opponents had any sort of ping, this effect would be exacerbated by Siege's awful netcode at the time. This mechanic was by far one of the most broken things to ever be discovered in Siege. And thanks to it, a whole new era of gunners were born. I'm so happy this feature was removed though, because it would make this gunfight meta we are in so much worse. Moving past bolo leaning, another base game mechanic that was a massive issue for the game was bullet holes. Now, as you know, when you shoot a wall today, a small hole will be left behind. However, in the old version of Siege, this hole was see-through, allowing players to shoot holes into soft walls and then peek through the holes. This obviously was problematic because it allowed someone to peek at you through a hole that was extremely difficult to see, especially from the end of a hallway. Bullet holes were such a contentious topic in the community that you were frowned upon for using them. Ubisoft did eventually realize how problematic this feature was, and so they ended up reworking it into what they are today, which I see as an absolute positive, because if you played back when bullet holes were a thing, I'm sure you know how frustrating they were. Now for the 11th reason to not like old Siege, we have the old runout timer. This timer was 2 seconds long, meaning you could run out of the map completely undetected as long as you did it quickly. This feature was mainly used to throw cams outside. However, it opened up the defense for some absolutely crazy plays. The only reason why this feature was unfair or annoying was because of the fact that it allowed a defender to catch you off guard without warning. Moving past runouts, another infuriating aspect of the game back in the day was the bomb chassis. If you haven't been playing for that long, you may not remember this, but back when Siege first came out, the bomb chassis used to have gaps between the metal and the bomb itself. This allowed defenders to sit behind the cover of the bomb and hold a tiny angle through the inside of the chassis. And due to the large smoke produced by the bomb and the terrible lighting of the time, this angle was very hard to see. This was a super scummy angle that realistically should never have existed, because if you played back then, you probably died to this angle all the time, and you probably also abused it yourself. And due to it being so frustrating, Ubisoft eventually was led to reworking the bomb chassis altogether into what it is today. So let's just say you're lucky if you never had to experience this annoying angle. After the bomb chassis, I now want to talk about another thing that you all should be happy we don't deal with anymore. That being overpowered operators. This was something that happened once per DLC year pretty much. It started with Blackbeard, whose shield was damn near indestructible on release, and it ended in year 3 with Lion, whose wall hacks completely broke the meta for multiple seasons. There are many more examples of operators like this in the time period, like the release of Ela, and these operators were extremely frustrating to go against. I will admit they were fun to play, but for the overall health of the game's competitive scene, this had to stop at some point. Now you may say, well, we still have overpowered operators today. Look at Azami or Solace. But this was nothing compared to the operators of the time period I'm mentioning. If operators like Ela, Lion, and Blackbeard were being released throughout the game's entire development, we would be in an interesting place today, to say the least. Now for the final thing I want to discuss, we have the withstand mechanic. A while back, Zofia used to have the ability to just revive herself on demand. There was literally no reason for this other than some lore related to Zofia, but she still was given this super strong ability. And this did play a huge role in a lot of rounds, because in clutch situations, you either had to try and finish Zofia so she couldn't pick herself up, or you'd have to focus on her teammate, which a lot of the time, no matter what you chose, it would end up getting you killed. This was a very frustrating mechanic to go against, and it also made absolutely no sense. I remember back in the day having to explain this to some of my friends who were just starting to play, and it had them completely lost, and rightfully so. The good news is Ubisoft has stopped giving operators abilities based on their lore to make the game less confusing for new players, because things like this should have never existed. It put you in a lose-lose situation no matter what. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's awful trip down memory lane. If you did, I make Siege content just like this twice a week, so go subscribe to the channel and follow me on Twitter if you don't want to miss the next upload. If you want to see more of me, go follow me on Twitch because I'll be going live roughly 2 hours after this video goes up, and hopefully I'll see you there. Also, if you want to be involved with the community and help out with videos and streams, join up in the Discord. I want to get active over there, so don't be afraid to join up. The more people who join, the more we can do as a community. Now, if you want to watch another video just like this one, I'll be popping up on your screen right now that I'm sure you'll enjoy. I'll see you next time, friends, and peace.